Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode 8 of the Little Bishes Stitches Knitting Podcast. This is a podcast about knitting, a little bit of crochet, and running a hand-dyed yarn business in Hagen, Germany. I'm Catherine, your host. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and I also have a web shop. The information for those social media sources you can find in the show notes. So yeah, today I thought I would just jump in and catch up with you guys, show you what I've been working on, show you what I finished, and I would also like to share with you our new color line in the shop of mostly speckled, but there's also a tonal colorway there that debuted in the shop on January 20th. So if you would like to see what our new color line looks like, then stick around towards the end, and yeah, let's get started. So I thought I would start with finished objects. During the Christmas break and also the beginning of January, my knitting mojo finally came back, and I was so excited because I sat down and had a lot of inspiration, knit a lot of projects or started a lot of projects, and finally remembered how good it felt to just sit down and knit. So I casted on a pair of socks. This is a vanilla sock pattern that I basically use all the time. This is like my own version of the vanilla sock, using all the techniques I learned along the way with sock knitting. I have been knitting for the last 10 years. Not that that's anything important, but I guess what I wanted to say is I learned to knit because I wanted to knit a pair of socks, and I remember my first pair of socks wasn't really that great. It basically didn't fit very well. However, through the years, I learned a lot of new techniques and learned which sock knitting techniques I found to be my favorite, and I enjoyed knitting when using or when knitting a pair of socks. So to start off, I knit this pair of socks using our A Feast of Fruits and Flowers speckled colorway that is from our Golden Age color line that debuted, I think, last spring. And that was a color line that was inspired by the Dutch painters. I have an art and art history background, and my favorite genre of painting is really the dark paintings from the Dutch artists. And so I created a few speckled colorways, a few tonals that really celebrated those paintings, but also kind of the aspects of those paintings. Anyway, yeah, so I knit in our soft sock fingering base. This is a 75-25% merino wool. I love using wooden DPNs when I'm knitting socks. I learned to knit socks with a circular needle, and I used the circular needle because I felt like it was too overwhelming to work with DPNs, but through the years then I started to realize, okay, you're a bit more sure now and you don't have to worry about handling or dropping stitches anymore, so start with the DPNs. And I usually use a 2.5 needle, and I use that for these socks. I always start with a twist, or I start with a German longtail cast on, and I love using the twisted 1x1 rib for the band at the top, and then I just stack and knit to the end. And my heel is your classic heel flap and gusset. I used to knit, or I tried a few times knitting with the boomerang technique, or I think it was the German short rows. I always found that I always knit a heel that was much too tight, so I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And when I cast on a pair of socks, I don't always want to think. It's almost like that project that you have in the needles that you just can take everywhere with you, or just pick up and start knitting, and you don't really have to worry about when you're supposed to do reduce your stitches or increase your stitches. And so like I said, I just do my typical heel flap and gusset, and then I knit to the toe. And again, my toe doesn't really have any specific sock knitting, toe knitting aspect. So yeah, these are my go-to cast-on pair of vanilla socks in our Feast of Fruit and Flowers colorway. I must say I was really pleasantly surprised how this colorway knit up, because, or I'll say surprised in a positive way, because it really has these lines of black spaced nicely. There's no pooling, and also there's not any like, you know, areas of black and then like areas of like speckle coloring. It's almost like a self-striping sock with obviously the purples and the blues going on with the speckling that's in the skein yarn itself. And I think it came out really, really beautiful. So yeah. The next finished object that I finished, I don't have with me today because I already gifted it, but I'm going to show you guys here pictures of that finished object. That is the Saturday Shrug from Jackie Rose. She has several Shrug patterns on her Ravelry page. I'll also include her Ravelry link in the show notes. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, and it also was my go-to knit during the holidays. It was to be gifted, as I mentioned, and I really enjoyed knitting on this because this pattern was, or I'll say this knitting project was a lot of firsts for me. I had never knit a shrug before, and the yarn that I decided to use for this project was naturally dyed and 100% wool. I have it here. 100% wool in the sense that it is from a farm here in Germany. It's from the Schafwolle Wendelstein, I believe they're called. I actually visited their mill when we were on vacation in southern Germany about 2.5 years ago, and it was just a beautiful area, beautiful mill. They were so nice there. Even though I'm a small hand dyer, they were totally interested in showing me everything about the mill, how everything works. Told me about how the sheep are treated, and that was really important to me too, because the yarn bases that I have in the shop, they're not just bases where I thought like, yeah, okay, this looks great, I'll just take that. It's really important to me to know that the sheep are treated well, where they're coming from, and so it was really a treat that day to kind of get like a insider tour of their mill and see what they have. So yeah, after the tour, I went into their gift shop, or their store rather, and they had an entire section of naturally hand-dyed yarns. And I picked up basically about a sweater's quantity of this colorway. It is, as I mentioned, 100% merino. It's 220 meters long, and it is dyed with, I believe it's called, I mean, it's definitely called madder, but I think there's another name or an additional name to it. But madder is often used when dyeing naturally, and it really created this beautiful, almost plum color, and I really loved it. And I used 5mm needles for this. I didn't do a swatch to get gauge, I just casted it on, and luckily didn't have any issues with it. I do believe there is, for the, I think it's a tubular cast on, that I thought was very important when making the shrug, because you don't want to have a shrug that's too stretched out when you put it on, or when you wear it, and I feel like the tubular cast on really kind of like secures that it's not too stretchy, too floppy. So yeah, like I said, I will include in the show notes the link to Jackie Rose Ravelry site, and also to Schafwolle Wendelstein in Upper Bayern or Upper Bavaria. So yeah, this is really good. Oh yeah, another thing I want to say about this yarn too is sometimes knitting with natural wool is not really for everybody, and for me I thought, yeah, it's also not for me, it's too scratchy, it's too however, but it really was a dream knitting with this. It was very soft, it was almost like, yeah, I'd say butter to knit it. It didn't bother me at all, it was just really nice. So yeah, so that is my finished project. Okay, so now I would like to move on to my works in progress. I have in total 2 works in progress projects on the needles. They are both shawls, and they're both shawls from Stephen West. I am a bit of a beginner Stephen West knitter. It took me a really long time to start his projects or patterns, not because of anything negative or whatever. I have to honestly say I was a bit intimidated by his patterns. You see that there's a lot of geometrics, you see that there's a lot of going on, and I felt like from the techniques and reading patterns that maybe I wouldn't be able to figure it out. So with a bit of encouragement, I decided then to just start with his most simplest pattern, or one of his first patterns, and that is the Boneyard shawl. So I have that here. I've come quite along. It's gotten quite far, I'd say, in a short period of time. I would say 2 or 3 weeks I've been knitting this shawl, and I used our Mississippi colorway in our soft sock DK. And yeah, I mean, it really is for, I'd say, a beginner shawl knitter, a perfect shawl for that. There's a lot of basic moves in it, and which I also think is very nice is his whole geometric aspect he has here that's very simple. It cascades down the shawl, and it has a nice texture to it as well with the purling here, the purling rows. I also decided this year that I'm not going to, I won't say buy a lot of yarn, but I'm going to use the yarn that I have, whether that's my favorite yarn dyers or the yarn that I have in the shop that maybe I have a skein left or whatever. So I used at least 2 skeins of oh yeah, and another thing to mention about this Boneyard shawl, he has 2 sizes. He has small and large. I decided to do large, and the large called for a worsted weight yarn. I didn't use a worsted weight yarn, I used a DK, and I felt that that was enough. And I also used the needle size that he suggested for that. And I feel that that was the perfect combination, because the shawl is definitely not too small. And I'm pretty sure once I block it, it'll be even bigger. So yeah, our soft sock DK. And then I had some yarn left over from our Schneewittchen colorway. This is a tonal colorway that we have in the shop. It is our black colorway. And I used leftovers from our Merino cashmere nylon DK base. And at first I thought I would only do a couple rows of the garter rows and then do the I-cord cast off, but then I decided, wow, like this patch here is looking so nicely, I want the shawl to be even longer, and then I'll just keep going with the Schneewittchen colorway, and I feel that it's really, really beautiful. So I finished, I'd say, about 50 grams of one skein, and then luckily I found another 50 grams of the DK, and I will probably, yeah, I think I'll start then with the I-cord, and then I'm going to be finished with it. So yeah, again, beautiful shawl. I love how here on the front there's like a, you know, how he mentioned, how Stephen mentioned that there's a boneyard ridging down the middle, and then if you look at from the back, it is also a line, but it's just, whether that's the front or the back, it's just absolutely beautiful. So yeah, that is my Boneyard shawl, and it's almost finished. So the next shawl I mentioned I have here in my Yarnio project bag. This is a maker that we have in the shop. We had a couple of her project bags and they're all gone. I love her project bags. They are so, yeah, they're just so professionally made. I love how sturdy they are, stable they are. I also really love how she has in the bag on the sides little compartments, and they're also sewn perfectly to hold either needles. I have needles here on the side, or if you have any extras, for example, I'm believing at some point I probably will need extender cables for Stephen's shawl. It's probably going to be very big. You can also have little notions or stitch markers. It's just absolutely perfect. Yeah, and we also had her bags featured in our 2023 yarn advent calendar. It was Christmas in Germany with 24 20-gram mini skeins, all one-of-a-kind colorways, speckled to tonal, that were inspired by my experience in Germany during the Christmas season. So yeah, I really would love to stock her colorways again, or not her colorways. I would really love to stock her bags again. Probably about the spring, I'm going to touch base with her again and see if she has capacity for more bags for our shop. So yeah, I started knitting the Dotted Rays shawl from Stephen West. I would say that this shawl is a little bit more complicated than the Boneyard shawl. I had to take it apart quite a few times, but that wasn't because the pattern isn't good or there were any mistakes or whatever in his pattern. It was just because I believe I had to get used to the pattern in terms of like what he was asking of you, and I often missed quite a few of his instructions. Sorry, I had to adjust the light a bit because the sun is going down here in Germany and it got really dark. Yeah, so I was mentioning I had to take it apart a few times because I really, I guess, missed a few of the details in the pattern. And so I'd say I've been knitting on this the last week or 2 weeks. I've only gotten here this far. The cast on that he has in his pattern, I believe it's an I-cord cast on. I have never done that before. It was a bit tricky, but what I really loved is that he has YouTube videos with these instructions and he goes through it with you so that you at least get your start. And what I really loved about it is how he explained how to pick up the stitches on the side, and that really helped. And this pattern has a lot of yarn overs. It also has an I-cord edge, which I think is really beautiful. And again, you have a lot of the geometrics that's pretty typical in Stephen's patterns. You see that through basically the holes or the eyelets. And so far I'm really loving it. I'm hoping that this weekend I can also work a little bit more on it. I am using our Hurricane Twilight colorway. It is a brand new colorway that is part of the Melting Colors color line that debuted in the shop on the 20th, and it is also in our soft sock fingering base. For this I used 3.5mm needles. I started off with 4 and I was noticing that it was much too airy. I mean, you can kind of see that here on the edge. And then once I went down to needle size, it got much better. I was a bit happier because I didn't want it to be too airy. Then it almost looks like a lace shawl, and it's not supposed to be that way. And luckily enough, I guess I noticed that early enough so that it doesn't really show a difference in the scarf at this point. Yeah, they always say, do your swatch, but it's always difficult because you just want to start the pattern. Yeah, and I have a cute little stitch marker from the shop. This is a wooden stitch marker made from Atelier Lucienne. She is a maker here in Germany. I met her at the Westerwälder Wollfestival last fall. Really lovely lady. She has amazing stitch markers and crochet equipment and everything in her shop, And what I really loved about these stitch markers is that they are made from sustainable wood with the environment in mind. And I still love the polymer stitch markers from Super Miniatures, for example, or Simply Serving. But I also think it's quite nice to have a little bit of, yeah, I guess the planet in mind when having stitch markers. And it also it's so light too. I mean, that's also quite a nice touch, is that when you're knitting and you have a stitch marker or a place marker, that it's not so heavy that it's pulling down your stitches, and that doesn't do that at all. It also has a lobster clasp hook, and it's quite nice. So yeah, oh yeah, so I have Hurricane Twilight all caked up. It almost reminds me of like a hornet's nest. But it's really beautiful how the colors are mixed around, and the speckles. And so I thought I'd put on a candle from Recycled Light Germany. Like I said, it's getting so dark here. I love her candles. They're all soy wax clean burning candles, and they always smell so beautiful. So yeah, I thought I would now come to an end and show you guys our new color line, Melting Colors. Melting Colors is a line of new colorways that I feel really represent an aspect of melting. Okay, it's pretty obvious, no, melting. The whole idea behind the color line is basically about how the temperatures are like going up and they're going down. I'm not interested in doing a whole philanthropist rant or whatever about global warming or however, but I guess to some extent it kind of really preoccupied me, this essence of going about your day, going about your weeks, functioning within your own routine during that time, and the temperatures are always crazy, the weather is always crazy, and you just feel like everything really is melting. Even if we're having a snowstorm, the next day it's going to melt, and then it's going to be completely raining for 6 or 7 days and on end, and I just felt like everything's melting. I thought I would start off with Tectonic. This is a colorway I named Tectonic because it really reminded me of the earth, the plates movement. You really see that in how the speckles are there, how the base is a light beige brown. It really is very, very beautiful, especially with this juxtaposition of the light brown gray with the blue and the speckling, and also the brown speckling. And I don't wear blue. I won't say I'm not a fan of blue, but I guess I just, since I don't wear it, I felt like I didn't have much connection to it. But since dyeing yarn, I've been using a lot of blues in our colorways, especially the tonal colorways, and I feel the tonal colorways were very much a springboard for my love for the color blue, and also for my enjoyment using it when dyeing it. This is similar in a sense to our Big Sky colorway, in that it is using blues again, but with this colorway I really love how there is again another juxtaposition of the red and the blue. There's minimal teal speckling, and that was another aspect of this color line that was really part of my vision in terms of yeah, I guess the minimalistic elements of nature, of weather, and I feel that's really represented in these colorways. It's not any like it's not very similar to my other colorways that I've dyed in the past. They had like a lot of layers, they had a lot of I'd say parts where a lot was going on, or there was intense speckling, or there was intense layers, and these colorways really aren't that way. They have a very spontaneous application. I find they have a very simple application, and as is nature is also very spontaneous and simple. I felt that it's really beautifully represented in the colorways, especially this one. So this is Big Sky, and yeah, this is a very popular colorway in the shop. Since the color line debuted, this colorway totally sold out in our soft sock fingering, and this is the one skein I have left for myself, and I'm going to be dyeing more this weekend. So yes, so look at this together. This is absolutely beautiful. So the next colorway I have is the Butterfly Effect. It's a bit leaving the realm of the blues. This colorway came about with our 2024 yarn advent calendar. It was a one of a kind colorway, obviously, but I dyed this colorway and felt that it really has to be in the shop after the Christmas season, or after everybody had opened up their yarn advent calendars. And again, this colorway is with a lot of speckling, but with a lot of purples and with a lot of pinks and fuchsia speckling. And I called this one the Butterfly Effect because, again, momentum and energy is what basically brings a lot of the weather to us, and also to the changes to us. So yeah, so I'm gonna put these to the side so that they aren't distracting you when I show you the colorways. This is Lava. Again, you know, a colorway name that relates to nature and to the earth. I feel that this colorway has a lot of fuchsia, it has a lot of pink, but it also has a lot of gray with orange speckling, which I also totally love. And I feel this is a bit similar to our Fahrenheit colorway, but it's also very different in the application, and also a very popular colorway in the shop since it debuted, and I really love it. So this goes over here. So the next colorway I have is Molecular Atmospheric. This colorway reminds me a lot of like the gases in the atmosphere, and you really see that through the very, very light descent colors of blue and also of the neon yellow, and then the molecules are almost expressed through the speckling. So, and then here, this is Hurricane Twilight that I showed you before in the Stephen West shawl. This is also also again a minimal application of colors with a gray base, some light peach mauve with some speckling, and also with some purple and with some fuchsia as well. I think that this would make an amazing kit, to be honest. This is not, this colorway is not part of the new color line. This is our champagne colorway, but I had to bring it up from the studio because I thought that it mixed so well with the other colors. Or you could have, no, that doesn't match very well. But you could have the molecular with the champagne. I think that's also really beautiful. So the last colorway I have from the new color line is our Calvin or Calvina colorway. This is a semi-tonal colorway that I designed. It's not your typical tonal. A lot of the tonals that I have in the shop are very, very solid. Maybe there's a light difference in the gradient of the color in the skein, but this one is really excuse me, I would say very what would you say, evident on purpose, and I really love that about that, because everything doesn't always have to be perfect all the time, and I think it's always really great, especially when dyeing yarn, that you can also be spontaneous. So yeah, I think Calvina really expresses that very well, especially from the name, in terms of temperature, Calvin, and yeah. So these are all the colorways that we have from the new color line. I'm really proud of them, and I'm also really excited about the response that they've been getting from all of you, and thank you all so much for having shopped our shop update on the 20th, and for all of you who have been purchasing the new colorways. I'm hugely thankful to all of you who support Little Bishes Stitches. It is a small business, it is woman owned, and I take a lot of pride in that because my shop to me is really my way of sharing my joy with all of you for yarn and also for color, and I really love how that's celebrated, and thank you so much. So yeah, this also looks pretty cool together. So I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to episode 8. If you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up, and if you're curious to see our videos in the future, then please subscribe. Until then, take care and bye-bye.